Waitress loses her job for helping Will Smith. The next day, her life takes a complete turn. If you've ever wondered how a simple act of kindness can completely change the course of your life, this story will show you that fate sometimes works in mysterious ways. An unlikely encounter, a courageous decision, and a twist that no one could have predicted. Watch until the end to discover how an ordinary waitress ended up in the Hollywood spotlight after losing everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Diana Méndez didn't usually believe in decisive days. For her, each morning started the same as the others. The alarm clock ringing insistently at 5:30 a.m., the strong and bitter coffee prepared in her old coffee maker, the slightly yellowed uniform, and the crowded bus to Café Magnolia, where she had worked for almost 7 years. On that Wednesday autumn morning, however, something in the air felt different. Perhaps it was the golden light coming through the cafe's windows, or the more intense smell of dry leaves accumulating on the sidewalk outside. Diana ignored the feeling as she tied her worn apron and prepared for another day of forced smiles and mediocre tips. Café Magnolia was located in Santa Monica, a spot frequented mainly by tourists and some locals. It wasn't a luxury establishment, but it had its loyal clientele. The owner, Mr. Patterson, a middle-aged man with a difficult temperament, managed the place with an iron fist and eyes always alert to any employee's mistakes. "Diana, table 7, shouted Judy, the hostess, while organizing the menus. Diana walked hurriedly between the tables, her order pad firmly secured between her fingers. She knew that routine by heart. As she approached table 7, however, she felt her heart skip a beat. A man with dark sunglasses and a low cap sat alone in the most secluded corner of the restaurant. Despite his attempt at a disguise, Diana recognized him instantly. Will Smith, in the flesh, was sitting in her section. "Keep calm," she thought to herself. "He's just another customer." "Good morning, sir. May I take your order?" she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Will Smith raised his eyes from the menu and smiled slightly. "Good morning. What do you recommend?" His tone was gentle, almost shy, completely different from the expansive personality the world knew. Diana noticed something in his eyes. Fatigue, perhaps sadness. "Eggs Benedict is the house specialty. Can I bring you an orange juice while you decide?" "Perfect," he replied, returning the menu. As she walked away, Diana noticed from the corner of her eye 2 suspicious figures approaching the cafe entrance. Paparazzi. She knew the type well. She had briefly worked in an upscale restaurant in Beverly Hills before being fired for accidentally breaking an expensive piece of china. She had seen celebrities being chased and harassed, and that memory made her slow her pace. The 2 men with cameras scanned the environment, and Diana realized the exact moment they located Will Smith. The actor, oblivious to the situation, was checking his phone. "Judy," Diana whispered to the hostess, "there are paparazzi at the door, and they're after the customer at table 7. Judy's eyes widened. "I'll tell Mr. Patterson." "No." Diana held her by the arm. "You know how he is. He'll want to draw attention, make a scene. That will only make the situation worse." "And what do you suggest?" Diana looked around, thinking quickly. The cafe had a back exit that led to a quiet alley. It was mainly used for deliveries and taking out the trash. "I'll help him exit through the back, discreetly. Just cover for me." Judy hesitated but nodded. Diana returned to Will's table with the orange juice. "Your juice, sir," she said as she placed the glass on the table. Then, she leaned slightly and whispered, "There are paparazzi at the entrance. If you'd like, I can help you leave discreetly through the back." Will Smith looked surprised, then relieved. He glanced discreetly at the entrance and saw the men with cameras, one of them already pointing his lens in his direction. "I would really appreciate that," he replied quietly. "Finish your juice normally. I'll go to the kitchen and come back. When I pass by, stand up and follow me to the bathroom hallway. Just turn left afterward." Will agreed with an almost imperceptible nod. Diana walked to the kitchen, ordered the eggs Benedict to go, and returned through the dining room. As she passed table 7, she gave a slight nod. Will Smith, as planned, casually stood up and headed toward the bathrooms, while Diana blocked the paparazzi's view with her body. Once in the hallway, Diana quickly guided him. "This way," she indicated the back door. "It leads to a quiet alley. If you follow to the end and turn right, you'll reach a parallel street. It should be safer to call a car." Will Smith looked at her with genuine gratitude. "What's your name?" "Diana." "Thank you, Diana. You didn't have to do this." She smiled, handing him the bag with his order. "Your Eggs Benedict. I hope you enjoy it." "You're a rare person," he said, taking some bills from his wallet. "That's not necessary," Diana began. "I insist." Will placed the money in her hand. Many people would have taken a photo and posted it on social media, or notified the paparazzi to earn a few dollars. With a final thank you, he left through the back door, leaving Diana with a generous tip and a racing heart. It was the right thing to do, she thought, returning to the dining room. Unfortunately, her little adventure didn't go unnoticed. Mr. Patterson was standing in the middle of the restaurant, arms crossed and furious expression. "In my office. Now." Mr. Patterson's office was a tight and stuffy cubicle, decorated with old photos of the cafe and some framed certificates. The short, stocky man closed the door forcefully and pointed to the chair in front of his desk. "Want to explain what happened?" Diana took a deep breath and told the truth. "A customer was being harassed by paparazzi, so I helped him leave discreetly through the back." "A customer?" Mr. Patterson laughed humorlessly. "It was Will Smith, not just anyone. Do you know how much a photo of him in my establishment is worth? Do you know how much we could profit from the publicity?" Diana felt her stomach sink. "Sir, he seemed to want privacy. I was just trying to respect him as a person. I don't pay you to have opinions about customers." Mr. Patterson slammed the desk. "Those paparazzi came asking me why we helped Will Smith escape. We looked like idiots. I'm sorry, but..." "No buts, he interrupted her. "This was the last straw, Diana. You've always been problematic, always wanting to do things your way. You're fired. Get your things and don't come back." The words fell like stones on Diana. 7 years of work. 7 years of waking up at 5:30 a.m., of forced smiles, of enduring rude customers and Mr. Patterson himself. All ended because of an act of kindness. "Without notice? Without compensation?" she questioned, her voice trembling. "You violated our policies. Left with a customer without authorization. Misused the emergency exit. I have enough reasons for termination with cause." Mr. Patterson opened a drawer and removed an envelope. "Your payment until today. Now leave." Diana took the envelope with numb fingers. There were no tears, just an enormous emptiness in her chest. She untied her apron, left it on the chair, and walked out without looking back. The journey home was a blur. Diana lived in a small apartment in a modest area of Los Angeles, shared with a roommate she rarely saw due to their different work schedules. Sitting on the bus, she looked at the city through the window but didn't really see it. How would she pay this month's rent? How would she buy food? Her mind spun in an endless cycle of worries as the termination paper burned in her pocket. Upon arriving home, Diana let herself fall onto the worn-out living room sofa. The apartment was quiet and stuffy. Should she call her mother in San Diego? Should she start looking for another job immediately? The idea of going through another series of interviews, of starting from scratch somewhere else, seemed overwhelming. At that moment, her cell phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. "Hello, Diana. This is Will Smith. I hope you don't mind, but I got your number from a waitress named Judy. I wanted to thank you again for your help today. Can we talk?" Diana looked at the message for long seconds, certain it was some kind of cruel joke. But how would someone know about the incident so quickly? Hesitantly, she replied, "Hello. No problem. How can I help?" The response came almost immediately. "Actually, I'm the one who wants to help. Judy told me you were fired because of what you did for me. I'm sorry about that. I'd like to talk in person. I can send a car to pick you up if you prefer." Diana felt a tingling in her fingertips. Was this real? Was Will Smith, the Hollywood star, really offering to help her? Part of her wanted to refuse. She had too much pride to accept charity. But another part, the practical part that knew she was jobless with bills to pay, made her respond, "Okay, thank you." 30 minutes later, a black car with tinted windows parked in front of her building. The driver, a man in a suit, knocked on her door. "Miss Diana? Mr. Smith is waiting." The trip took about 20 minutes, heading toward Beverly Hills. Diana looked out the window of the luxurious car, feeling completely out of place in her worn jeans and simple t-shirt. The driver finally stopped in front of a discreet but visibly elegant restaurant. "We're here," he announced, getting out to open the door for her. Inside, Will Smith was waiting at a secluded table. Seeing her, he stood up with a warm smile. "Diana, thank you for coming." She shook his extended hand, still dazed by the situation. "Thank you for the invitation," she replied, sitting in the chair he indicated. "I've already ordered some dishes for us to share. I hope you don't mind." Will gestured, and a waiter approached with water and bread. "First of all, I want to apologize. It wasn't my intention to cause problems for you." Diana shook her head. "It wasn't your fault. Mr. Patterson is complicated. He was probably looking for an excuse to fire me for some time." She tried to smile but failed. "I'll find another job." Will observed her for a moment, as if evaluating something. "What if I can offer an alternative?" "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "I'm working on a new project, a film that starts shooting in 2 weeks. It's about an ordinary woman who, through small acts of kindness, ends up transforming an entire community." He paused. "What you did today, helping a stranger without expecting anything in return, reminded me exactly of what this film is about." Diana listened attentively, uncertain about where he was going. "We need production assistants, reliable people who can work behind the scenes. The salary is good, and although it's temporary work, it opens doors in the industry." Will smiled. "What do you think?" Diana blinked a few times, processing the offer. "But I have no experience. I've never worked in film. Technical experience can be acquired. Character cannot." Will took a sip of water. "I saw today that you're the type of person who acts with integrity, even when no one is watching. That's exactly the kind of person I want on my team." The dinner continued with Will explaining more details about the job and Diana still trying to believe the turnaround her life had taken in less than 24 hours. At the end of the night, she accepted the offer. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind. Diana was introduced to producers, directors, and the entire crew of Acts of Kindness, Will Smith's new project. Her job as a production assistant included everything from organizing schedules to ensuring everyone was where they needed to be at the right times. It was exhausting but infinitely more rewarding than waiting tables. On the first day of filming, Diana was particularly nervous. She checked and rechecked her lists, making sure everything was perfect. That's when the director, an energetic woman named Michelle Reed, called her for a private conversation. "Will told me your story," said Michelle as they walked through the set, "about how you helped him at the cafe." Diana blushed slightly. "It wasn't a big deal." "I disagree." Michelle stopped, looking directly at her. "Our film has a very similar scene. A waitress helps a celebrity escape from paparazzi and ends up losing her job because of it." Diana's eyes widened. "Seriously?" "Yes, and we're having trouble finding someone to play that waitress authentically." Michelle narrowed her eyes, evaluating Diana. "Have you ever thought about acting?" "Me? No, never." Diana laughed nervously. "I wouldn't even know where to start." "It starts with being yourself." Michelle smiled. "Think about it. We do a test, no commitment. If it doesn't work out, you continue as a production assistant." The idea seemed absurd, but Diana agreed to think about it. That night, in her new apartment, rented with an advance on her salary, she called her mother in San Diego. "Mom, you won't believe what happened." She told the whole story, from the encounter with Will Smith to the proposal for a small role in the film. "Daughter, this is destiny," exclaimed her mother with a choked voice. "Remember when you did theater in school? I always said you had talent. Diana smiled, recalling her school performances. It was true, she had always liked acting, but life had taken her down a different path. Perhaps it was time to try something new. The next day, she informed Michelle that she would do the test. With the help of an acting coach hired by the production, Diana worked hard to prepare the scene. When the moment came, she was nervous but determined. "Action!" shouted Michelle. Diana took a deep breath and transformed into the waitress from the script, something that, ironically, didn't require much effort. The scene flowed naturally, and when she heard, "Cut!" she noticed that the entire crew was looking at her with surprised expressions. Will Smith was the first to applaud. "I told you," he exclaimed to Michelle. "She's perfect." The small role ended up expanding as filming progressed. Diana's character, initially planned to appear in just one scene, gained a complete secondary story. She worked hard, dividing her time between acting and her responsibilities as a production assistant. Each day brought new challenges and discoveries about the world of cinema. 3 months later, when filming ended, Diana had earned the respect of the entire crew. During the wrap party, Will Smith made a special toast in her honor. "To Diana," he said, raising his glass, "who reminds us that sometimes the greatest talents are found in the most unexpected places, and that small acts of kindness can indeed change lives." The transformation in Diana's life didn't stop there. When Acts of Kindness premiered a year later, her performance, though brief, caught the critics' attention. "A refreshing discovery," wrote The Hollywood Reporter. "Rare authenticity in a newcomer," highlighted Variety. Offers began to emerge. Small roles in series, then more substantial characters in independent films. Diana discovered that she had found her true calling. 5 years after that fateful morning at Café Magnolia, Diana Méndez was at the Oscar ceremony, nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her role in a critically acclaimed drama. The cameras focused on her face as the envelope was opened. "And the Oscar goes to Diana Méndez." The ovation was deafening. Diana walked to the stage, her steps firm but her heart racing. As she held the golden statuette, she looked at the audience and saw Will Smith smiling proudly. "This award," she began with a choked voice, "is for everyone who believes that kindness is never in vain. 5 years ago, I was a waitress who lost her job for doing what I believed was right." She paused, her words resonating through the silent theater. "But that end was just the beginning of something greater than I could ever have imagined." Diana raised the Oscar a little higher. "Thank you, Will, for seeing something in me that I couldn't see myself. And thank you to Mr. Patterson," she smiled, mentioning her former boss publicly for the first time, "for firing me. It was the best thing that could have happened." The audience laughed and applauded. Diana left the stage with a sense of completeness she had never experienced before. Backstage, she found Will Smith waiting to hug her. "You deserve every second of this," he said. "All because I decided to help a customer escape from the paparazzi," replied Diana with bright eyes. "Sometimes," Will smiled, "the universe rewards us when we least expect it." Diana knew that her story seemed like it came straight out of a movie, but it was real. An ordinary waitress who lost her job for helping a movie star, only to discover that her true place was in front of the cameras, not serving tables. That night, returning home with the Oscar in her hands, Diana did something she hadn't done in years. She drove to Santa Monica and stopped in front of Café Magnolia. It was closed at that hour, but she could see through the windows the same environment where she had worked for so long. She smiled as she realized she felt no anger or resentment, only gratitude. Every experience, every difficult moment had brought her here. Her life had taken a direction she could never have predicted, all because she decided to do the right thing on a seemingly ordinary day. Diana left the cafe behind and drove back to her new life, carrying with her the certainty that sometimes losing something can be the beginning of finding everything you never knew you needed. 2 years after winning the Oscar, Diana Méndez inaugurated a foundation to help service industry workers find opportunities in film. The first sponsor, Will Smith. And what about Café Magnolia? It eventually closed when Mr. Patterson retired. The location was bought by a film studio and transformed into a permanent set, ironically, for a series about a waitress with dreams of becoming an actress. Life, as Diana learned, has a curious sense of humor and its own way of closing circles that not even the most talented Hollywood screenwriter could imagine.